In this video, we're reviewing Wuthering Heights and curing the sickness of longing with a spiced botanical cocktail called the Haunting of Heathcliff. Today, on the Martini Shot. Hello and welcome to the Martini Shot, the home of movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails. Before we get into the review, let's whip ourselves up a drink. This drink is going to be a combination of things I know they were probably sipping on during the times the story takes place. Gin, for sure, as it plays a role in Catherine's dad drinking himself to death, as all men did back in the day. They also had a propensity for something called negus, which is essentially just mulled wine. So that gave me an idea for this gin New York sour hybrid that combines some of those Christmassy spices into a syrup along with a float of red wine on top. I did plan on using a little bit of egg white for this, as you will be seeing a lot of eggs in the movie, like a disgusting amount, but I found the separation of layers to look better without it, so just know it's there in spirit. There's unfortunately no spirits in this movie, but there are some in this drink. Let's get into it. This will be a shaken cocktail, so go ahead and grab yourself a cocktail shaker. First, we're going to be starting with some fresh lemon juice at 3/4 ounces. And next, we're going to be using what I'm going to call a mulled wine spiced simple syrup. Basically, this is just taking some of the spices that are usually found in mulled wine and making a simple syrup out of them. I kind of just eyeballed this, and you can probably do the same and just kind of adjust it to your tastes. But I did use a combination of cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and star of anise. So feel free to adjust it to your heart's content, and we are going to be adding 1/2 ounce. And now for our alcoholic ingredients, first we're going to be adding a little bit of raspberry liqueur at 1/2 ounce. And then our main spirit is going to be gin at 2 ounces. All right, go ahead and throw some ice in your shaker and shake to chill. Once you're done, go ahead and strain your cocktail into a rocks glass filled with ice. And now we are going to layer a little bit of red wine on top. You can do that by slowly pouring it over the back of a bar spoon. And you can pick your wine of choice. I'm going with a cab, which is going to be a little bit sweeter. And there you go. Now you have the Haunting of Heathcliff. It's nice and bright, nice and tart. I love that spiced simple syrup in this. It obviously pairs super well with that layer of red wine floating on top, but it also pairs really well alongside the more citrusy notes coming from the lemon juice. The spices aren't super overpowering, but they're definitely there. Not very punchy, but they have this nice little mouthfeel that comes after some of the more brighter notes of the cocktail pass through your tongue. And because of that red wine, there's also this nice little richness to it as well, which is really, really nice. Pairs super well alongside the more brighter notes. There's even like a slight hint of vanilla that isn't in the cocktail itself, but I think it's just all those combinations of flavors coming together. It creates something that is very akin to vanilla. But overall, this is great. I think it is a good mixture of a spring or summertime drink and a more fall winter drink. Perfect for the changing of the seasons, and it pretty much means you can drink it all year round. Now that we have our drink, let's get right into the review. Emerald Fennell, now entering her 3rd feature film, is seemingly becoming one of those directors that you either love or you hate. I really enjoyed her debut film Promising Young Woman for its dark humor and respectful enough take on a serious subject. Even if I recognize a few issues I have with that film, I still think it's a pretty solid debut. Saltburn, her sophomore follow-up, did not get as much praise from me. It's certainly entertaining, but I didn't ultimately get what Fennell was going for with this other than seeing how grossly horny it could push it. But now we have Wuthering Heights, an adaptation of the Emily Bronte classic that has had people already make up their minds about it before even seeing it. Well, I have seen it. So if I had to fall into one of the camps of love or hate with Fennell, okay, not really, but I can say with confidence that this is perhaps the weakest outing from her yet, both as a Wuthering Heights adaptation and as a romantic movie. Now, I am no Wuthering Heights scholar by any means, but from what I do know and understand about the novel, it seemed like all the pieces were there for Emerald Fennell to make something that was right up her alley. A dark story filled with absolutely terrible people that manipulate and haunt one another through the excuse of toxic, unrealized love. Oh, she actually already did that. but what we ended up getting here is more a story about longing that seems to completely abandon both the nuances of the novel and a lot of its elements that made this book super interesting. This is really half a story that does succeed at being a visual masterclass that absolutely nails its set design and coloring, but all of that is in service to a film that doesn't fully sell its sense of longing, desire, or sexiness that Fennell seemingly set out to tell. It certainly tees itself up, but there's just no follow-through. In case you don't understand golf talk, I mean it's less of a bad movie and more of a disappointment. The film tells the story of Catherine and Heathcliff, two childhood best friends who grow into adults with apparent but unspoken feelings for one another. When the prospect of marrying into wealth comes along for Catherine, Heathcliff, feeling abandoned, leaves to amass his own fortune, returning years later to rub it in Catherine's face, leading to a messy lover's quarrel that's filled with just as much love as there is hate. So I went into this not really expecting this to be a full-on adaptation. Many have tried in the past, and most, if not all, fail to fully encompass the ideas and themes the book presents to the screen. It genuinely might be too daunting of a task to do in one film, so I do want to try to keep my comparisons to a minimum. Still, the original highlights a toxic cycle of desire and abuse that follows Catherine and Heathcliff into death, along with some poignant takes on classism, race that have all but been erased from this adaptation. Fennell is allowed to adapt as she sees fit, but it does make you scratch your head wondering why all the interesting bits got left out. Her retelling paints Catherine and Heathcliff less like unchecked narcissism and more like doomed romantics whose desires for one another turn them into monsters. Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi are ultimately just fine in this, really kind of suffering from the text given to them. Robbie at least comes close to Catherine's childishness, but Elordi isn't given material to give him the edge the character needs. Fennell desperately tries to humanize him by removing his claws, so all you're left with is a guy who does mildly bad things and is hot while doing it. Without much of the layers that gave these characters some depth, both of their plights just come off as annoying and honestly easily preventable. Truthfully, there was way more emotionally resonating material coming from Hong Chau's Nellie, who represents more of Heathcliff's original hatred for the wealthy than Heathcliff. Where this film does find its footing is in the visuals. This is easily Emerald Fennell's most luscious and vibrant movie to date, being incredibly colorful and striking to look at. The titular home of Wuthering Heights is a dark and jagged hole that breeds hostility, surrounded by obsidian walls and splintery wood. But a lot of the set design works as well as it does thanks to stellar framing and blocking. There really feels like there's intent behind every shot, visually illustrating moods and intentions. It's refreshing to see a notable Hollywood movie not skimp out on the juice and fall into the usual trappings that comes from period pieces. One thing that didn't work for me as well is the music. You know, I'm Brat, I'm with it, but Charli XCX's original songs for the film just didn't fit for me. Modern, contemporary music can certainly work in a period piece setting, but these just left no impact on me, blandly disappearing into the background of each scene they're in. Brat Summer is one thing, but Brat Winter maybe just isn't as great. So my biggest problem with this is, okay, Emerald Fennell doesn't want to carry over the characterization, the themes, or the darker elements that made this book a hit. Fine, sure, whatever. But at least you have to make it interesting. Based on how the director talked about her experience with the novel, this seemed like it was going to be a super romantic and alluring story mixed with Fennell's trademark discomfort. But this is neither all that erotic or unnerving. The film literally gives its characters everything they wanted, so any idea of longing is just kind of thrown out the window. Meanwhile, we get hints of the film wanting to go in a more divisive and uncomfortable direction, but it never pulls the trigger. You think this will unravel into two petty lovers torturing one another until it inevitably destroys them, yet this thing just meanders about with makeout scenes and moments of intimacy that just feel hollow. She had all the room to twist this story into something but shockingly refrains from her provocative tendencies. At least then there would have been something more memorable to it, but this is just boring. And it's only made worse because this is titled Wuthering Heights. This borrows the characters and setups and seemingly nothing else. It just comes off as a fanfic that wants nothing to do with the ideas of abuse and classism. No, obviously the most important part of this story is the two annoying people who hate and love each other. There's no resolution that actually matters, reaching for an emotional response with over-the-top, gaudy displays of sorrow that never confronts anything pricklier about its story. I just don't understand why you would take a story like this, strip it for parts, and then not do something that at least recontextualizes the story or adds a new perspective. There is nothing of deeper value to take away from here. Even if it didn't have the baggage of being named after a classic, this is still a pretty tame and uneventful romantic story. The only saving graces are the beautiful visuals and Fennel's admittedly funny and witty script. The whole thing just feels like a fumble though, a fumble of the gothic horror source material and a fumble of what Fennel is good at. It's palatable, if anything, but at this point with the 2 movies that she has under her belt, Fennel's work should be anything but. For my rating, I'm giving this thing 2 cracked eggs out of 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Martini Shot. If you saw Wuthering Heights, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And if you like what you saw here and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me across all social media channels. Those links are down in the description below. If you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to check out my website, martinishot.blog. Until next time, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Live deliciously, but please remember to drink responsibly.